fundraiser for Pathfinders for Cancer. Pathfinders has been a great help to me and my family this past year through my cancer treatments. Thank you, Pathfinders, for all you do for people who are dealing with cancer. I never thought that I would ever be speaking to a group of people about my own personal experience with cancer. But I have thought a lot about what I want to share with you. And my mom has taken notes from talks we have had together and helped me figure out what exactly I wanted to say to you. I was asked to speak to you today about perseverance. Perseverance means you keep hoping and trying no matter how tough something gets. The first thing I want you all to know is that as I tell you my story with cancer, I don't want you to compare my problems to your problems and think to myself, what am I complaining about? The message I want to share is pretty simple. I hope that as I tell you my story, you'll understand that I believe we are all here for a reason because God has plans for each of us, and that's why it's important to persevere through our challenges. The scripture that my mom read to me once when I was in the hospital is Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. My story starts right after I celebrated my 10th birthday. I was sick for a few weeks and antibiotics weren't helping. I would fall asleep sitting up, my whole body ached and I wasn't eating anything, not even my favorite pizza. I remember thinking something must really be wrong for me to be in a doctor's office one minute, only to be on a plane the next to Children's Hospital in Denver. My life changed in a pretty big way for me on the next day on October 19th, 2010. I had my very first surgery. Doctors took out some of my bone marrow and looked at it under a microscope. That night, a doctor sat on my hospital bed and said, "You have leukemia, Peyton. It's a type of cancer." Boy, that sure was the hardest thing to hear. I thought that when the doctor told me that I had cancer, she meant that I was going to die. Even though my parents told me I would get medicine that would help my body heal, I was scared for the next few weeks that I would die. I have ALL, acute lymphocytic leukemia, the kind that most kids with cancer have. If a kid is older than 9 years old when diagnosed with ALL, they're considered high risk. So that means for me, since I was 10 years old when I was diagnosed, that I get more chemotherapy than younger. I have ALL, acute lymphocytic leukemia, the kind that most kids with cancer have. If a kid is older than 9 years old when diagnosed with ALL, they are considered high risk. So that means for me, since I was 10 years old when I was diagnosed, that I get more chemotherapy than younger kids. Chemotherapy is really strong medicine that kills cancer cells. Some chemos are so strong that they destroy good cells too, like cells that make hair grow. And so for about 4 months last year, I was completely bald. Because I am a boy, I have to have chemo for 3 years and 4 months. Boys with ALL get 1 more year of chemo than girls with ALL do, because for some reason boys have sanctuary sites, places that leukemia cells like to hide out in, like the brain and spine. So I will be 13 and a half when I am all done with chemotherapy. Then I will have 5 years of doctor's appointments to make sure cancer doesn't come back. And so I will be all done with everything when I'm 18 years old. Once I was diagnosed with ALL, chemo needed to start right away, so I had another surgery, this time to get a port. A port is about the size of a bottle cap, and it is right here in my chest, under my skin. It's connected to a big vein, and a needle gets poked into it. I wish it was a thin needle, but it's not. When I am having a chemo treatment, the needle stays in my chest and has a tube attached to it. A nurse can take blood from my port and give me blood through it too. I have had 18 blood transfusions, so we joke to the nurses that we are sure of what they are getting when they draw blood from me. Leukemia is cancer of the blood, or your white blood cells, which are made in your bone marrow, so my blood is always getting tested. Right after I had the port surgery, I got a really high fever and the port hurt a ton. It got infected, so I had to have an emergency surgery to get it out. I never had a surgery in my life before, and that was my 3rd surgery in 4 days. The port infection was not a good situation for me to be in right after being diagnosed with cancer. I had to go to the ICU because I was starting to go into septic shock. That just means my body was starting to shut down from not being able to fight the infection with good white blood cells, which I didn't have very much of. We said a lot of prayers when I was in the ICU. Praying helped remind me that I'm not alone because God is always aware of what I'm going through. The infection gave me a pretty big blood clot that started where the port was and went all the way down my arm to my elbow. I had to have lots of shots that kept the clot from being dangerous. And later I had to have 3 more surgeries. The infection left a hole in my chest, and to heal it I had to have a stiff sponge inside the hole. The sponge was connected to a tube in a vacuum called the wound bag. I had to carry the wound bag around with me for a month. We called it my Iron Man battery. After my wound healed, I got a new port on the other side of my chest. It would hurt badly when it got poked or accessed. When I knew I was going to have to get it accessed, I would have thoughts that made me feel anxious. I learned to tell myself, it's just this poke, and then it's over. Sometimes the accesses wouldn't work though, and I'd have to get poked again. So I had to really concentrate on thinking positive thoughts. You can't help having scary thoughts when you are going through scary things. That's normal. But I learned that the very next thought, after the scary one, was really important to helping me get through hard stuff. That's when I would try to tell myself positive things. I bet other kids with cancer think the same things I do when they get anxious, because you need to find ways to help yourself. I think that is something that can help a person persevere, knowing that you really can choose your thoughts and how that helps you get through anything you're dealing with better. During weeks after weeks of long infusion days, clocks seemed like they slowed down or stopped. I had to learn to be patient, which wasn't easy sometimes, especially because before cancer, I wasn't a very patient person. But having roadmaps helps. Roadmaps in leukemia are month-by-month plans for treatment, so you know what's coming up and what you need to do. Whenever I finished one of my roadmaps, it felt so good to know that I got through it. Part of persevering is sort of like following roadmaps and sticking to a plan. It helps you learn to have patience as you work towards your goals, which you need in order to persevere. I have had a total of 12 different chemo medicines. The toughest one was Decatron. Every part of my body ached and no one could touch me. I couldn't walk while I was on Decatron. That chemo is what finally made my hair fall out. As you might guess, when I go to my appointments, I'm not the only one who is sore and has had to go through being bald. Some kids at clinic have stitches and long scars on their bald heads from brain tumors. Some have eye patches, some look really pale and green. I have photos of me when I was green. My skin turned that color from a chemo I had to carry around in a great big backpack. And it was connected to my port for a week, for 4 separate weeks. It's so toxic that I had to take a rescue medicine at the end of each week to get it out of my body. I had to really be patient and pay attention to my thoughts in those weeks, and especially I couldn't look at the clocks. I had to accept that things need the time they need, and that the medicine couldn't go through my port or veins any faster. I think part of persevering is accepting things that are necessary for us. I didn't want to have all these toxic chemos. I didn't want to get poked all the time or lose any of my hair or turn green, but I had to go through these things to make me better. I had to do the hard work of dealing with things the best I could so that my thoughts and attitude didn't make things worse. Sometimes we need the strength of others to help us be strong to persevere. I don't know how I'll get through Decatron or any part of my treatment without my family. I needed all the love and attention they gave me. My mom said that I held her hand more last year than when I was a toddler. The support and love and prayers from family and friends to keep you hopeful and give you strength. When I pray that I will get better, I also pray for the same thing for the other kids I see at the clinic who are going through cancer treatments. One day, my mom and I came up with a way to help other kids with cancer. It is something I have been able to do even when I don't feel so great. We make something we call Payne's Potion. It's a super non-toxic cleaning spray that we make in batches, sell, and then donate to money to an organization called PureSearch. PureSearch gives money to research for childhood cancer. If it wasn't for the research they helped pay for, other kids and I probably wouldn't be here. When I make Payne's Potion, it is really good for me. Sometimes I would start to feel down from isolated for so long, or from the side effects of the chemos, and so we would crank up the volume to my favorite song by Michael Franti and make Payne's Potion. Making Payne's Potion makes me not think about my problems in a negative way. While it helps me when I make it, it feels even better to know I'm helping other children who have cancer too. A lot of people were good examples to me of giving. Friends and even strangers did so many kind things for me. And it's amazing how much it helps you have hope and want to persevere. Early in my treatment, a woman that I have never met and her friend made me 1,000 paper cranes. They folded paper cranes or birds 1,000 times. Paper cranes symbolize hope. When I first tried making one, it wasn't easy to do, and so it meant so much to me that people I didn't even know would spend all the time doing something so kind for me. I heard about 2 other little boys in our area who also have leukemia and wanted them to have cranes too. So I got the word out, and lots of people donated cranes. Paper cranes were left at our front door and sent in the mail. The entire Clement Springs Middle School took on the projects too. Valley View Hospital put together a fundraiser called Payne's Magic Potion Parade, where more cranes were made. We collected over 2,000 paper cranes, and it was really cool to meet these other boys and give them the cranes and let them know that so many people cared about them. I may have missed out on my whole 4th grade year of school, but I'm grateful for the learning I have had so far in my cancer treatment. I hope to not forget the things I have learned. Hopefully, they will help me in my life and whatever else I may go through, big or small, to remember the importance of persevering. I know that as we each do what we need to persevere in our lives, we will be able to see the plans God has for us. He is aware of us, loves us, and helps us to persevere. Thank you for the chance I had to come here and talk to you.